Hey everybody, we're going to get started. It's just a little bit past the hour. Good morning for those joining us out west, and good afternoon for people on the East Coast or in Europe if you're over there. We have over 600 people registered for today, so we're very excited to be with you guys today. We're bringing two of our most notable experts on LinkedIn and sponsored updates to talk to you guys about how to take advantage of LinkedIn ads at scale. My name is Jonathan Young. I'm the Partner Enablement Manager at LinkedIn for our ads partners. I work with our customers and our agencies to get them set up with the best-in-class partners that we have to offer. And you guys can, feel free to reach out to me at any time, jyoung@linkedin.com or on Twitter. And maybe if you flip to the next slide. Just going to give you guys a quick overview of some things before we get started. So if you have any questions, we want this to be interactive, please send them through WebEx at the Q&A feature. We'll look at them at the end of the session. As well, if you want to tweet them via hashtag LinkedIn content, we'll get to them at the end. It is going to be recorded, so you guys can check it out after. And if you do have any feedback about the session, please fill out the survey. We'll use that to improve future sessions. Next slide. So before we dive into the meat of today, just wanted to give you guys a high-level understanding of how our sponsored updates and ads partner API partners work. Essentially, if you haven't worked with them before, these are third-party companies like AdStage who are building advanced technology on top of our APIs as well as other platforms, both social and search. They provide these software tools on top of these API platforms to help them manage their campaigns across networks and cater both to brands directly and agencies. And the functionality that they provide is generally above and beyond what you can access natively. So think of these as campaign manager tools that allow you to kind of work across networks and also, if needed, get services to help you scale up your operations. Go to the next slide. And some of those advanced functionalities that I mentioned that these partners are building are things like bulk functionality, automation, dayparting and scheduling. Even some progressive partners, like you'll hear from today, have built things like conversion tracking to help our demand gen savvy advertisers start to track ROI. And really thinking about a cross-channel experience. We understand that you guys work across many networks to reach your goals. These platforms really help you do that in one central location. Next slide. So I'll leave the bulk of the insight and information to come from our speakers today, but if you do ever want to reach out, please contact us at partner-operations@linkedin.com. Feel free to connect with me directly, and I'm happy to help guide you to the best partners for your needs. So with that, I'll hand it off to Sahil, our speaker for today.
Great. Well, hey guys, I'm really happy to have you all join us, and hopefully, our goal for AJ and I, who are speakers today, is for you to be able to walk away from this conversation with not just the basics, but a few really advanced tips and tricks that we hope you can even go and use in your office today to scale your LinkedIn ads, and in general, just be a little bit more savvy around a variety of tips and tricks that you can employ with your campaigns. So without further ado, my name is Sahil Jain. I'm the co-founder and CEO of AdStage, which is an ad tech startup based in downtown San Francisco. And so, our goal is to build, a self-serve platform that allows you to manage all your ad campaigns, your PPC, under one roof, and kind of distribute it to the masses. We're not just building for the top 1%, it's for everybody. And we're really lucky to be joined here with who I consider the #1 leading LinkedIn ad expert in general in the world, AJ Wilcox. And AJ, you can say hello.
Well, that was about the best intro I've ever gotten. Thank you, Sahil.
You bet. So we're going to dive right in, guys. We're going to start with an agenda so you have an idea of where we're going to go with the conversation. And I'll start the conversation off. We'll pass it to AJ, and then we'll jump into a couple of fun demos. So at the beginning, what we want to do is a little bit, kind of gloss over the macro level trends of, what is LinkedIn as a network? Specifically, why is it interesting to advertisers? And there's a few tips and tricks there. AJ is going to take it away from there and talk about 3 must-use tracking systems to measure ROI. So a big problem with LinkedIn today, unfortunately, has been, well, we think that it's working, and we all see the results of it, but we can't really connect the dots. And so we're going to talk about how to do that. And then finally, we love to end with additional tips and tricks so that you guys who attend this webinar have an edge up against everybody else, basically. And then finally, our favorite portion is a live Q&A, where we're going to open things up to the Q&A feature within the product that you're using with WebEx, and we'll answer as many questions as we can get to. So let's jump into this. So let's talk about LinkedIn as a network. So as we all know, it's a big network, right? 380 million professionals, they call them members at LinkedIn, that you guys can tap into. And there's a couple things to think about when you're thinking about LinkedIn today. And we'll start with the B2B properties. So as some of you have probably seen, LinkedIn is slowly gobbling up a variety of content, and more specifically, professional B2B properties. So recently, the most recent acquisition was of lynda.com, which is a long-standing education-based partner that's focusing around professional education. Then they had SlideShare, which they acquired years ago, and a couple years as well ago, I guess you could say, they acquired Pulse, which turned into their platform for user-generated content. So not only are they kind of bringing in professional-grade content, but they're also letting the experts and professionals of their member group create content themselves at a very high rate. Now, what's interesting for advertisers is not that, oh, great, we have a lot of things to read. You can think about that as increasing the real estate or surface area upon which you can target your advertising or show your advertising. So this is audience expansion in some ways, but in general, this is more inventory for you to tap into. Now, as these are different properties, you do have to think about them to some extent in a different way, but note that LinkedIn, what they're doing is they're very specific targeting, or the precise targeting we talk about, when you can target by job title, job function, you can exclude company targeting. All of those are being layered on top of these different properties. So it's not just LinkedIn proper where you can use this targeting. The targeting is going to expand across the different properties that they've started to acquire, and who knows, maybe there will be more that we hear about soon. And so for us, we're really excited about this. We think that it's one of the most affluent networks you can basically get. If you think about, whenever you're thinking about targeting across these networks, you have to think about who is the end user. And so you have very career-oriented individuals. You have a lot of businesses with their company pages now. All of those are up for grabs. But one of the most important things to remember, in my opinion, is we always get the question of, well, what's the difference between B2B advertising on Facebook versus LinkedIn? And the most important thing for that is data accuracy. If you think about how you use Facebook, do you really keep the career portion of your Facebook up to date? Not so much, right? And this is a common trend, and likely so, and it's reasonable to think that way, right? You use Facebook for family and friends and for whatever other reasons, but not as much from a career-oriented standpoint. With LinkedIn, you do. So whenever you're actually targeting these users, if you're doing job function targeting or if you're targeting specifically by company name, you can be sure that it's going to be a lot more accurate, at least, than, say, Facebook. And that's really key, and that's worth the premium you may think you're paying until you see the true ROI. So let's move on to the problem. The problem right now with LinkedIn advertising, which we're all trying to alleviate, and we have different tips and tricks for that, is how do we measure that our LinkedIn advertising or marketing efforts are working? So we all, the common complaint we get is LinkedIn is really expensive because the CPC or the CPM is higher than that of Google or than that of a Facebook advertising effort. But the key, as smart marketers as you all are, we know that what's important is the ROI. So are you actually ROI positive, and to what margin are you ROI positive when when someone clicks on your advertisement and hopefully signs up for your service, right? And so measurement and down funnel measurement, so not just the click measurement, but actually, being able to look at different attribution windows, being able to ensure that they sign up for a white paper or they sign up for a webinar or what have you, that actually ties into the positive ROI for you. And so we have a lot of really big clients, and I think at AdStage we work with some of the largest clients on the LinkedIn advertising network. And what we realize is they're very savvy, and they've figured out through backend systems or through Google Analytics tracking, which AJ will get into later, they've figured out that it is working. And in fact, it's working so well that even though the initial click is quite a bit more expensive than some of the other networks, it doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, the LTV and ROI they're getting from the long-term customers they're gaining from the LinkedIn advertising efforts is substantially higher than that of other channels. So that's why measurement's really important. And of course, a couple things to think about is we know it's difficult to measure with LinkedIn ads alone. And that's why at AdStage we actually built in our own conversion tracking that we have in the platform that you can use with auto tagging, so on and so forth. I'll show you guys this later. But the most important thing here is you can probably get away with measurement to some extent when you're doing your initial test. But the theme of this entire presentation is how do you scale your advertising efforts on LinkedIn? How do you continue to kind of tap into the professional network? And that's making sure that you have all your tracking set up. And we're going to talk about some of those tools in just a bit. So again, just to sum it all up, ROI remains a huge mystery, but there's a lot of ways that today, even without conversion tracking in the native interface, that you can figure out if it's ROI positive for you or not. And that's the most important thing at the end of the day for advertisers. So anyways, we're going to jump into AJ's portion of the presentation, and we'll come back by giving you guys a little bit of a demo of the AdStage platform after. So AJ, over to you.
Okay, awesome. Just sharing screen here now. So I'd like to talk about the different offers, because I think when clients tell me that they want to advertise on LinkedIn or they're looking to expand, the first question I have is usually around the offer. Okay, so what is it that you are offering to visitors, to members on LinkedIn? And so here's a nice little funnel that I've created that just talks about the various offers, what is fairly common to use. What this is at the top of the funnel is very low friction content. And then at the bottom of the funnel, where you see webinar, is where there's higher friction. And so the reason why this friction is introduced, if you're just sending someone to a blog post or an infographic, there's not a whole lot of friction. Nothing required of the user. They can click on a piece of content, read it, and say, maybe get a paragraph into it and say, okay, that's great, but not super interested, and they can leave. Whereas at the bottom of the funnel, you have something like a webinar, and I realize this is ironic that we're speaking on a webinar, but to a webinar, not only do you have to give up your personally identifiable information, so you can figure that someone may reach out to you at some point over email or over phone, but you also give up a nice, 60-minute to 90-minute chunk of your time during, what is usually a busy work day. And so there's higher friction there, and then everything in between, maybe a guide or a white paper in that second step. You give up an email address, but maybe only 2 or 3 minutes or maybe 5 minutes to read it, whereas an ebook, you might be setting aside 30 minutes of your life to read it, and you're giving up personally identifiable information. And so what I like to tell people is make sure that you are beginning to focus on the top of that funnel. Now, you might not be able to start out with the very highest there, sharing infographics, blog posts, things that aren't gated. But if you are, it's a great place because LinkedIn users are so hungry for content, and great content gets rewarded. So if you do need something gated, if you need an email address in your marketing automation system, I recommend jumping right to step 2 here, which is a guide or a white paper, something very low friction. You are collecting an email address, but it's generally interesting. Now, this is not a blanket statement saying that webinars don't work well on LinkedIn or blog posts and infographics are by far the best. This is an overgeneralization because I've had some clients who, with a webinar, we absolutely kill it, but we can't get anyone to click on an infographic or vice versa. So keep in mind the top of this content sharing funnel is a good place to start, but don't focus all of your efforts. You really should test all the way down the spectrum if you have the resources. Okay, so tracking systems for LinkedIn are crucial because as Sahil talked about, an advertiser, we may know that the channel is working for us, but we don't know how. We don't know which campaign, which audience, which ads are working. And so what I'd like to do, and my goal here is to walk you through what's possible here in terms of how you can be tracking, how you can be attributing, and then talk about scaling that. So first of all, when you begin pulling all of your data in and trying to attribute at any sort of scale, trying to see what your leads are doing, you need 3 systems and to varying degrees. So the very first bubble here, very crucial, you have to have your reporting directly from LinkedIn. Now this is going to be your cost data, your impressions, clicks, click-through rate, and spend data. Obviously very important because you need to know how much you outlaid in order to get certain leads. And then the second bubble here, analytics for online conversions. This would be bringing in Google Analytics data for form fills, or maybe bringing in Site Catalyst data if you're using Adobe. And so bringing in the top of the line conversions, but that doesn't tell the whole story because as most of you know in B2B, the whole rest of the story is told in the CRM. It's, you may have gotten someone to fill out a form, but there are so many varying degrees of success in terms of lead quality there. Someone could fill out a form for a demo because they're hot and ready right now to talk to a sales guy, or they might fill out a form because they want to download a white paper and they may not be interested in talking to you yet. And so because of that wide range, you really do have to include all 3 of these systems as a very sophisticated advertiser. The traditional way of doing this is by marrying up data inside of Excel. And so the way that I do this, I tag all of my ads with unique parameters that I can inside Google Analytics, these are called UTM parameters. But I tag every ad with a unique parameter that allows me to tie that single ad performance, and in fact all of the individual elements of that performance, all the way down to the revenue level. And so the way that you would do this is download all of your ad data from LinkedIn, download conversion data from analytics, and then download your CRM data for, let's say it's a sales qualified lead, a purchase, maybe initial leads, part of that data set, tying it all back to that unique parameter. For the curious, the parameter I use is called UTM_content for Google Analytics. And when you bring all three of those sources in, they're all relying on that one UTM content parameter. And then in Excel, you just use VLOOKUPs and pivot tables to show you your information in the way that you want to see it, and repeat as necessary, because obviously your ads are always changing, performance is always changing. Your campaign that just is the gift that keeps on giving, at some point it may not be the gift that keeps on giving, so you have to keep monitoring. And then there are also solutions like Bizible. So in the second box here, you see Bizible is a company out of Seattle that does something really cool. What they do is they take your cost data and your traffic data from ad platforms, and they'll do it for any of the platforms as well as LinkedIn, and they pass those directly into Salesforce. And so you can run a report directly inside of Salesforce or inside of the Bizible platform that watches how your cost data from each source, from each campaign, even from each ad, how it contributes to actual success, actual deals, revenue, even pipeline. So here's an example of me using Excel on one of my accounts here. So what you can see over here in the left-hand side, I'll even use the mouse to kind of point this out. Maybe it's a little tacky. But here we have the list of campaigns that we're looking at. And of course you have your impressions, your clicks, your spend, which come from the ad platform. But then you have these goals that I'm bringing in from Google Analytics. So goal completion 1, goal completion 3 are different stages of the funnel. So goal conversion 1 is going to be an initial form fill, and 3 is going to be something deeper in that sales process. And then click-through rate that we've defined from clicks and impressions over here, conversion rate as a measure of the goal completion. And then my two favorite fields here are the cost per conversion. So this is cost per initial form fill. And then here is a cost per project. So this is where the rubber actually meets the road. This is where the client is making money. And so we see this is how you measure ROI. When I very first started advertising on LinkedIn 4+ years ago, I started on a data journey, as I like to call it, and it's been somewhat of a passion for me. So when I very first started, the only metric that I had access to was inside the platform, I got click-through rate. And the concept here is that when ad A has a click-through rate of 0.6% and ad B has a click-through rate of 0.3%, the ad with 0.6, if it's ad A, is an inherently better ad. It has higher engagement, more people are interested in it. So you look at that as an advertiser and go, okay, let's create more content like A. Let's feed that a little bit more. Let's starve B. And as my data journey increased, as I started figuring out how to attribute and how to do reporting, I finally pulled in that first initial form fill lead, which I've told you before it doesn't tell the whole story. But what I did find out was that there was a 0% correlation between click-through rate and conversion rate, meaning that ad A that has the higher click-through rate, there is like a 50-50 chance that that's actually going to be the ad that converts better to that form fill. And so I would just say, whatever you do, make sure that you're optimizing to the deepest funnel metric that you possibly can. If your data is coming in at a slower rate, or you're looking at a smaller time frame, this may or may not, you may not be able to use that data to actually make statistically valid decisions, but just go a step up. So if you're looking at revenue, at sales, and you say, okay, my data here doesn't tell me enough, step up to the next level. Maybe this is where someone's talking to a sales guy and they do a demo, or they've passed some sort of interview process where they have the budget and the authority and the need there. And so obviously, as you look at conversions, look at a deeper funnel conversion if you can, and try to bring in the entire picture. Remember, and if there's anything that I can communicate here, is make sure that you optimize further down, because you never know lead quality until you get further deeper down and they're talking to someone in your sales process. Okay, and then one of my favorite parts about LinkedIn is finding the hacks, finding the pieces that allow us as advertisers to eke additional efficiency out of our ad spend. And so 3 tricks I'd like to share with you today are right up here on the screen. The first is exclusion targeting, and the reason why is because as an in-house marketer for so many years, I repeatedly had people from either my marketing department or my sales team who would say, hey AJ, I saw one of your ads, I clicked on it, like, it looks like you're doing a good job. And I would just pull my hair out and go, why are you charging me money? Like, leave my ads alone. And so what I started doing on LinkedIn was excluding my own company, and then now as an agency, I exclude myself, so me and my employees don't see it. And then especially important, excluding competitors. The way that LinkedIn's targeting works is by persona, and so it's entirely possible that your target audience's persona fits in, maybe one of your competitors, maybe your marketer or your sales guy at a competitor fit neatly within your audience. And so what you want to do is exclude that company because obviously competitors have no problem clicking on your ads, charging you money, and there's like a 0% chance of them actually becoming a client. The second trick is delivering ads when cost per click are the lowest, when conversion rates are the highest. And so I'll talk a little bit about an example there. But the concept here is that there are different parts of the day where there's different activity going on the platform. And because bids don't change over the day too much and budgets don't change over the day, you can look at the supply as being constant. But what happens is, as people come in the mornings to the office, a lot of times they'll check in on LinkedIn, allowing a lot of inventory, a lot of ad inventory to be free. And so what happens is supply stays constant because all of the advertisers are not changing anything, but demand has increased because people have come into the office. And so if you're looking at what that does economically, that brings the cost per click down. Also, people in the morning tend to be more ready to convert. I think I would hypothesize that they're just not tired yet. So showing ads in the morning has been something that's been very beneficial to me. And then the third here is rapidly building and scaling campaigns. The issue here is that if you're working with let's say the initial campaign you set up is targeting marketing and sales job functions, and it's looking at seniorities, anyone who's manager and above. And that's great. I mean, if this is the audience you're trying to reach, you know you're getting them. The problem is when you get a conversion from that audience, what does that teach you? What does it tell you about your audience? And it's a trick question because that doesn't tell you anything. All you know is that conglomeration of audience responded in a certain way. Well, what if you broke this out and let's say you had a sales job function campaign and there was a sales manager campaign, wow, I'm scattered, a sales job function campaign with a manager seniority, and that's a whole separate campaign. And then you break it out and say, okay, let's do a sales job function with director, and another campaign that's sales job function with VP, and another one that's C-level. And so all of a sudden you've taken your sales and you've turned that into 4 campaigns. You can do the same thing with marketing. Now you have 8 campaigns. And now you can tell exactly what happens when you spend on a certain audience. So you may find that cost per click is higher on a director, and for some reason they don't convert as well. So maybe a lower cost per click on manager is exactly what you need to do to drive more business. Or maybe you find that a VP costs less because you're speaking to them in higher terms and languages, and they really appreciate that, and they have the budget, and so they accelerate faster in the buying cycle. So basically what I'm saying here is make sure that even if your budget isn't giant, that you're building your campaigns out for success, breaking out in any individual audience so you can begin to learn about who those audiences are. And inherent to this is it allows you to scale. You can say, hey, let me push more budget into the directors, let me cut budget on managers, and you get very finite control there. Okay, so let's talk about exclusion targeting specifically. I like exclusion targeting to, again, as a reminder, I like to exclude my own company, the client company, and competitors. And of course, you can exclude current customers because you don't need to advertise to someone who's already purchased from you. Of course, it helps in the nurture cycle, but you probably have different ads you want to show for that purpose. And so what we're looking at here is a screenshot from the new campaign manager inside of LinkedIn. And you can see that I've toggled this company's targeting to the exclude portion, and I've added B2 linked my company, and I'm also in the process of excluding AdStage, just as an example. And of course, you can do include, but exclude is a lot more fun in this case. And this is something you can go do right now. You can go into every single one of your campaigns and exclude your competitors. Now, my favorite part, actually one of my very favorite parts about AdStage is the ability to do this in bulk. So AdStage allows you to basically just highlight all of your campaigns and apply a bulk filter that says filter out these companies, and you add it and you're done. If you have a very large account, that obviously takes a lot of clicking in the native platform. Okay, I talked about how mornings tend to show the lower cost per click. For the last time I measured this, when I ran ads in the morning, I had a $1 lower cost per click than when I was running them in the afternoon and the evening. And so this can really make a big difference, especially if you're on a limited budget. So what we're looking at here is actually inside of AdStage, there's a rules-based metrics and action section where you can create a schedule. And so what you can see here is I'm running Monday through Friday from 3 a.m. to 5 p.m. and you can tighten that up as budget is available. If you have a very large budget, you probably need to be running it all day because you might not spend your entire budget in just the mornings. But if you have limited budget, what better time to spend than when CPCs are the lowest and conversion rates are the highest? And of course, your mileage may vary on this. You'll want to test everything. And then I talked about building out campaigns at scale. It used to be in the old campaign manager, and this is where I lived for years. You would have to create a new campaign from scratch. If you had a long list of companies that you were targeting, long list of groups or skills, it was a huge pain to rebuild that. LinkedIn did give you the ability to duplicate a campaign, but it would bring the creative with it, which was not an option for me because I track every ad individually, and so I don't want excess creative just sitting around. So one of my other favorite features about AdStage that became a hack for me was this box that you can see on your screen with the arrow that says load settings from. Anytime you create a new campaign inside of AdStage, it gives you the ability to load all of the settings, not pulling creative, but loading the settings from any other campaign. So this means that if I have 2 clients who go after a similar audience, or I used to have a client who had a similar audience, I don't have to rebuild that campaign from scratch. I can essentially pull the settings over. I also like to have a sandbox account where I can build targeting for a client when we're face-to-face before I have access to their account, and then just essentially copy that over. So one of my favorite features of AdStage, but nothing stopping you from doing this manually as well. All right, so I'll go ahead and pop back over to show Sahil the screen.
All right. Great. So just sharing my screen. Cool. So thanks, AJ. Really appreciate it. What I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to give you a high-level overview really quickly of AdStage and then jump into the interface, show you a few of the things that AJ was actually just pointing out in a more interactive manner, as well as some of the things that you can use the platform to do, hopefully to scale. So at a high level, just give you an idea, AdStage, as mentioned before, allows you to manage your Google, your Bing, your Facebook, your LinkedIn, and your Twitter advertising from the single platform. It's really easy to sign up for. You just go to our site, which is adstage.io. You click sign up, and it throws you right into the product. And you have a 14-day free trial, so every single one of you here can easily try it. And then you just put a credit card in, and it costs anywhere from $199 a month up to $399. That's it. So we don't take a % of your spend. We don't charge for a bunch of different clients. It's really, really easy. And that was our mission statement, is we really wanted to build a tool that we can democratize for the masses, and we can have every single company in the mid-market or even upstream use it without having to worry about paying off the percentage of spend and increased lift or what have you. And so let's jump right into the tool, and I'll walk you through a few of the power features. Now remember, if you end up really enjoying it, you can feel free to reach out to Jonathan or feel free to reach out directly to me. And we do trainings and webinars and all sorts of things around the product. But let's jump right in right now and kind of give you a taste of it. So the very first step is quite simple. Once you log into AdStage, you link your various ad accounts. And so this is actually our account that we're using to manage our own ad campaigns. And you can notice that for LinkedIn, for example, I have 3 different ad accounts. And what's interesting here is that even in the new campaign manager for LinkedIn, it's still a little bit cumbersome to manage a variety of LinkedIn accounts, for example, or if you have, of course, multiple different networks, that becomes an even larger problem. But specifically in the LinkedIn case, if you're an agency, you have multiple different clients, or if you're really, they have a 1,000 campaign limit per account. So if you want to start really rapidly scaling, as AJ was discussing, you're going to have a few different LinkedIn accounts, LinkedIn advertising accounts. What's really cool about this is if you are an agency or a larger business, you can even group. These are just example groups. You can even group your accounts so that you can group them by client or by product unit and very quickly turn those accounts on or off. Another new feature that we have in AdStage, which is really interesting for us, is we're starting to build in integrations. And so the first integration that we built in was Google Analytics. So now you can actually link one or very many Google Analytics accounts, and you can actually start to pull automated reports. You can view all of your Google Analytics data, and very soon you'll also be able to merge that data directly in the platform next to your campaign performance data. And of course, we have other integrations coming down the road, like retargeting integrations or call tracking, so on and so forth. So as soon as you link your various ad accounts to the platform, that kicks off your trial, and we start to import the last 2 years of your data into the AdStage platform. Once we've imported your data, we take you to the global dashboard. So this is your high-level roll-up dashboard. You're not going to make a lot of changes here, but you can do things like change the date. And what our goal here is for you to get kind of a bird's-eye view of how your campaigns are performing across networks, and in general, get a pulse on how things are doing. So if we go further down this page, you can see the different networks side by side. You get kind of all the common metrics at the front. And then further down this table, you get all the native metrics, what we call the network-specific metrics. And you can, of course, configure this table. We pull in every single metric from the 5 networks that we support. And what's really cool is we try to make everything, our goal is for the platform to save you time. That's our core kind of value proposition. And so, for example, if you want to pull this report, you hit export. It'll download in the background. It typically takes a few seconds, and then it shoots out in a CSV format for you. Further down this page, you have your basic time series, so you can see how things are trending over time. You can change the metrics, of course. You have compare metrics graphs as well for your different time series layout. And now we're starting to get into a couple things that are pretty interesting. So here you have these are my top 10 performing campaigns, in this case based on clicks. You can change the metric as you please across the different networks. I can do things like bulk actions, so I can adjust budget across these different campaigns. I can even, edit the campaigns from this level. So if I hit this little gear next to my LinkedIn campaign, I could jump into full targeting editing right now. I don't have to go into the campaign specifically. And then further down this page, you have your budget versus your spend. So let's actually go to the left-hand sidebar. Let's say that you're a LinkedIn advertiser, and right now you just want to focus on LinkedIn. So let's drill into our LinkedIn-specific dashboard. So the first level that you're going to see here is all of your LinkedIn accounts. And again, even in the new campaign manager, you're unable to see the performance metrics next to each of these accounts at a high-level roll-up, right? Which is a little bit tedious if you're managing multiple accounts or managing multiple clients. We also give you a really nice flat hierarchy. So what if I want to see all the campaigns across multiple accounts? You get that right here from this given view. And so in about a few hours, we're actually launching a new feature, which is an All Ads tab as well, and I'm showing you this on our staging server. And so here you can actually just imagine being able to log in and see all creatives, both sponsored updates and text ads. We're currently the only partner that supports both sponsored updates and text ad support on the LinkedIn side. So you don't have to use LinkedIn for just text and then just use this for SEO. You can use it for all of your PPC. But we're just launching this new tab where you can actually see all your creative at a very high level roll-up, so across all your different accounts. And of course, you can filter, so you can look at just your SUs, just your text ads. If you want to look at just your active ads, for example, we make it really quick. But let's actually look at a couple of the power features that AJ mentioned. So let's say that we actually want to bulk edit and change the targeting across multiple campaigns. Let's actually select a few of these different campaigns and hit Edit Settings. This takes a few seconds, and what it's actually going to do is open up a box. So in this case, you can see it here. And now we're bulk editing 3 LinkedIn campaigns at the same time. Using the search functionality, I can actually add as many campaigns as I'd like. And here, what you'll notice is every single targeting option that you have in LinkedIn, right? And what's really interesting with these targeting options, so for example, you have exclusions, so here's excluded locations. With our bulk editing, we don't just have you replace or overwrite the targeting in your existing campaigns. We also we also added 2 different options, which is add, which will just append a new, in this case, a new location to your targeting, or remove. So let's say that you actually want to make sure you're pulling out of a given, you're pulling out of Japan for all your various campaigns, and you want to make sure that you remove them from all of your campaigns, which otherwise you'd have to do one by one, right? You just type that in, you change it to remove, and you're good to go. And again, we support all the exclusions that AJ was talking about, so exclusions for company name, for example, and you have all those here, so set exclusions for company name. So that's an example of bulk editing, but let's actually drill down into a campaign now. So let's say that we want to jump into this sponsored updates campaign called PPC Skills. We have full campaign level dashboards as well. So here you can now see, and the deeper you go into the product, like let's say you go specifically deeper into a network, in this case LinkedIn, the metrics are going to become LinkedIn specific. So they're not just the high level metrics, but if you look further down this page, you'll also see, the total summary stats, which is content clicks, company clicks. You can configure those tables. You can see your top performing SEUs, which we can pivot open, and you can see them load right there with their destination URLs. And of course, you have your click intelligence, right? So you can see what types of folks are clicking on your ads. But a couple of the things that we tried to implement that we think work quite well are things like bulk ad creation. So let's say we want to add a few more SEUs to this campaign. It's pretty quick. So here are all my existing sponsored updates that I can very quickly just bulk select and add to the campaign. Or I can create new updates very quickly. So I can create, update number 1, update number 2. We'll point this to the AdStage website. And it'll pre-populate. And what we're going to do is we're going to upload a few pictures so we can do multivariate ad testing essentially. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to web images and I'm going to type in dogs, because who doesn't like dogs? And so we're going to add a few of them. We're going to add 5 in this case. And just like that, it says that we're now going to produce 12 variants. So if we open up the modal here, we can see all the different variants it's going to create. And because of folks like AJ who are really DR focused or tracking focused advertisers, we allow you to override the URLs so you can track down to the creative level specifically. So that's another example of a time-saving feature that we built into the product. The last feature that I really want to show you guys on the campaign management portion is automated rules. So AJ went over this from a Dayparting perspective, but we've created an automated rules engine that you can access on any campaign. Let's say that I actually want to create a rule for about 20 different LinkedIn campaigns, both text ads and sponsored updates. We have a variety of different rules. So we have rules for Dayparting, which is scheduling. We have pausing campaigns or pausing ads based on performance, so if the CTR drops or the conversion rate drops. And we even have bidding and budget rules. For example, if I want to make sure that if a low-performing campaign, so let's say the CTR drops below 0.25%, and the spend for this campaign increases or is over $1,000, then I want to decrease my budget by 10% until this campaign goes back down to $200 spend. And I want to run this rule automatically every week on Friday using data from the previous last 7 days. And that's it. And now you've created a budget, essentially a mini budget algorithm to make sure that you don't overspend on poor performing campaigns. So a couple last things is what we've also done, a lot of you guys on the sponsored update side know that you typically have to go to LinkedIn to go manage your company page, to go see which updates you have and then take them and add them to campaigns. And we didn't want you to have to do that. And so we built this companion app is what we call it, which is basically a tool that you see in the left sidebar called the Sponsored Updates app. And what you can see here are all of your updates, your organic updates as well as your direct sponsored content, which is kind of like your dark posts. And you can very quickly grab them and you can click sponsor and you can drop them into a variety of campaigns. You can also create new creative from this application like you saw before with multivariate tests. And you can even take your top performing, so let's look at this, there's this update that we have here. It's performing quite well organically. Let's actually duplicate it, turn it into a dark post, and now add it to campaigns. So there's a variety of different workflows that you can use to save a lot of time. And that's kind of our goal for the AdStage product. You can even create alerts to let you know when an organic update is performing very well and then turn it into an ad. And of course, you have analytics and insights. So we'll end with 2 last pieces. We've already talked about automated rules, but we're going to talk very quickly about Google Analytics. So as mentioned previously, we've integrated a Google Analytics tab. And so a lot of you demand gen focused folks are probably very familiar with these different tabs that you see: campaign, source, medium, content, and so on. And you'll see that this is a lot of the traffic. So these are the tables that you see in Google Analytics. But why not bring it under the same roof where it's contextually relevant to your ad management portion? So here you can see a couple of things that AJ was talking about, which is goal completions, goal value. You can toggle on a variety of different goals that you may have for yourself or for your clients, and you can analyze this data. Let's say that we want to actually look at a device report, because today, again, in LinkedIn, you can't see if you're getting the traffic from mobile or if you're getting the traffic from desktop, for example. So if I change this to device category, give it a few seconds, and now you can actually see your campaigns and what, if more traffic is coming through desktop or more traffic is coming through mobile and even tablet. So that's a really good use case for using the Google Analytics side. And very soon, we're also going to integrate GA so that imagine if you had all these columns appended right next to your actual ad performance data. That's the next step for us, along with auto tagging and UTM building directly in the platform. So we're going to end with conversion tracking in the report center. So one thing that we'd like to build is that, today in LinkedIn, you don't have conversion tracking. And so we thought that Google Analytics did a really good job of simple conversion tracking. So we actually just built our own version of this. So for example, if I want to track when a user signs up, and this is a URL destination goal type. And the reason for that is because we know that they've signed up once they hit a page like the thank you page. And the match type is either head or exact match. And let's say that this is worth $100 to us. You hit create goal, and we spit out a tracking pixel that you drop in the head of your site. And if you'd like to email it to maybe your webmaster, you can email it instructions directly from the product. And now you can go to any of your campaigns, you can turn on AdStage conversion tracking, and we'll auto append our version of UTMs to your URLs, and you'll actually have conversion tracking active for LinkedIn. And the last piece is our report center. So obviously, a lot of you guys are very, very savvy, and so you're constantly pulling reports, you're scheduling these reports, or hoping to schedule these reports. So what we've done is we've built a report center where you can basically build a variety of your stock reports or find your stock reports for all the different networks. So you have your Google reports, your Google Analytics reports, and even, let's say, LinkedIn in this case. And you can fully customize these reports. So let's actually hit create report for a daily performance report. We can choose whichever account we want. So we'll use the AdStage marketing account. And you can pull campaign performance, account performance, creative performance, or ad performance. You can change the columns that you want to pull in this given report. But what's really nice here is if I change the aggregation, I can also set at what frequency I'd like this report to automatically pull for me. I don't want to build this report every single week. So you know what? Send this weekly to myself and 5 of my colleagues. And you can add as many recipients as you'd like. So that's pretty much it at a really high level of the AdStage platform. There's obviously full campaign creation for all 5 networks. We've baked in tutorial videos to teach you the platform, just similar to this demo, to teach you about the very high penetration features that we have in the product. But with that, let's actually jump back into the deck now and finish off with a couple of last pieces here. So results, we don't like throwing big marketing numbers in anyone's face, but this is actually from AJ directly. And so as an agency, AJ is a LinkedIn-specific agency called B2Linked. He's told us, which we're very happy about, that he's had over 100 hours of time saving in the last few months as he's gotten the agency off the ground. And just specifically using Dayparting, he lowered his CPCs by $1, which is obviously very substantial, especially on the LinkedIn network where the CPC can be somewhat of a large hit. And then AJ, did you have anything else that you wanted to mention here in particular that was valuable for you as an agency?
So much has been valuable as just as the agency's been growing. I have the highest tier of the AdStage platform, and just being able to pull in every single account I manage is awesome. So if I can give a little testimonial, AdStage has been a huge time saver and a cost saver for me, and it has made me a lot more productive.
Right, and so we actually, this was totally not canned. We just put him on the spot just now, so we promised this wasn't a scripted piece. But anyways, thanks guys, we really appreciate it. Let's move over to something more exciting, which is questions. So let us have your questions, and we'll do our best to answer them.
Cool. Thanks, Sahil. Thanks, AJ. This is Jonathan again from LinkedIn, and I will be taking questions from the feed. So please send them through on the WebEx Q&A feature. We have a couple already, and I'll tee them up probably to who's best for each. Maybe AJ, if you want to take this one from the feed. The question is, have you found if image-driven or video LinkedIn ads perform better than text ones?
Good question. So image-driven ones tend to get really high click-through rate. And so depending on whether or not you convert them is kind of the difference there. But yeah, click-through rate, huge on those. The video LinkedIn ads were actually sunsetted in last July, or sorry, not in July of 2014. So the way I've found to get around that, though, is what you'll do is send traffic to a landing page that has a video and make sure that your image that you're using on that ad has a little embossed play button or a watermarked play button to show someone that they're going to interact with video. So that's the way that I've found to get around that.
Awesome. Very helpful. Thanks, AJ. The next one is for Sahil. The question is, what industries have you found to be most prime for LinkedIn ads?
Great question. So we've been thinking about this a lot ourselves too, and so there's actually quite a few front runners here. That being said, we'll talk about a couple of different use cases for even the B2C side. So what I mean is the vast majority of LinkedIn advertisers are B2B focused, right? They're selling to other businesses, but they're selling to more business-like institutions like schools, right? Or for management programs. And so the two big verticals that we've seen a tremendous amount of success, and in fact, it actually dominates their budgets well over any of the other channels, including Google in many cases, is the tech sector. So your big tech companies like a New Relic or a Domo, and then you also have, which I'm sure you guys have seen their advertisements of, and then of course you also have the education sector, right? Because you can target for management programs, you can specifically target the given job function or job titles that those folks would be going after. And so there's a lot of, I think some of the top advertisers on LinkedIn side certainly come from those two verticals. That being said, if you, again, remember, like the most important way to figure out if LinkedIn is the right place for your advertisements and how to show, how to position them is think about the audience. So this is a very affluent audience. They have a lot of buying power in many cases, not just for software, but even personal buying power, right? So you actually can get success from the B2C side. Let's take an example. Just thinking through it, let's take an example like a Gilt group, which is a high clothing, high fashion clothing group where the average price per purchase is pretty high. And so imagine if you can target male and female executives, right, who would be folks that would, more professionally focused with the different clothing lines or what have you, and they're able to actually afford those, right? And Gilt even has travel deals, again, for more, for going on a crazy vacation or whatever. And so you can actually target those individuals who have the buying capacity for that given deal. So those are the two different use cases that we look at, and we do tell people to try both sides, B2B and B2C.
Awesome. Great answer. Thank you. So one more we have here, and again, guys, if you have any questions, please send them through on the Q&A. But this one's for AJ, and the question is, how do you deal with LinkedIn automatically giving impressions based on CTR instead of your conversion rate?
Okay, shout out to Mitch for asking this question. It's a very good one. So there are a couple different ways that I do this. Obviously, LinkedIn will give priority to whichever ad has the highest click-through rate because it is inherently a higher relevancy score with that ad. And so if you have an ad that's running at, let's say, we'll use my previous example, a 0.6% CTR on ad A and a 0.3% CTR on ad B, if you realize that the one that has a 0.3% CTR is still a higher performer, if you're getting more revenue from it, if you're getting a better conversion rate, then a couple different ways I would do this. I would either go and pause the 0.6, or I would analyze both of those ads and see if I can basically spice up ad B to share in more of the characteristics that are getting a higher click-through rate. But essentially, and the other thing you can do is launch a parallel campaign with the same targeting and maybe have a couple different offers there, and assuming that both campaigns are both going to get impressions kind of separately, competing for the same audience. So yeah, there are a few tricks, but essentially you just have to force it. If you know that one is working well, just pause the one that isn't working, even if it has a higher CTR.
Awesome. Thank you so much, AJ. Great question. So we have one more here, and I think leave it up to you guys to decide who's best for this one. But question is, for a company starting with a more strategic LinkedIn advertising, what is the best sequence and rollout, number of ads, A/B testing, etc.? So like, what's the best way to, crawl before you walk?
Yeah, AJ, I mean, we can both answer this, but why don't you, you're in this, doing this every single day for new clients. So why don't you talk about how you get a few of your earlier clients kind of rolled out? And I would even kind of comment specifically what's really interesting as a new advertiser to LinkedIn is what's an okay starting budget, just to add on to that kind of conversation. We get that question all the time.
Yeah, same here. So excellent questions. These are some of my favorites. So when someone is just very first testing into LinkedIn, you do have to prove the ROI. You do have to prove out the channel, and sometimes in a very limited budget type of way. And so what I like to do is test as much as the budget will allow. And so what that means is if someone comes to me and says, hey, I've got a 4K budget, I might not be able to break out their audience into that example I showed before where, I took that one campaign and split it into 8 micro campaigns. I might not be able to get enough data to support all 8 of those audiences, but I can sure concentrate on maybe the extremes. So maybe you look at sales managers and then sales VPs and compare both of their performance. So whatever budget will allow, do as much audience testing as you can in segmenting them, because not only are you going to find out if LinkedIn is a good channel for driving your leads, but you're also going to learn something about the personas that you're going after and what types of content each level likes. And then in terms of budget, I really like to spend somewhere between about $1,500 and $4,000 on any given audience before I make the call about, oh, either this is terrible or this is killing it, or more likely somewhere in between. So yeah, that would be my recommendation is if you have between $1,500 and $4,000 to spend on an audience, great, stick to that one audience. If you have more, great, create another couple audiences and scale up that way.
That's awesome. Thanks, AJ. So another good question coming in from the feed, and guys, if you have any more, we have a couple more minutes with these guys, so let's tee them up. Question is, if you're launching sponsored updates in separate campaigns targeting the same parameters, will you be driving bids up? So, i.e., are you competing against yourself?
Yeah, AJ, so we both know this one, right? This is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if it's within the same account, you're not, right?
Correct.
Although if you're, if you have multiple ad accounts and you're doing the same sort of targeting on a campaign across on 2 different ad accounts, you will be competing with yourself.
Yep, so as long as you're in the same platform, you won't compete against yourself no matter which audiences you're cannibalizing. Thank goodness.
Yep.
Great. All right. So tag team effort there. So I guess this is probably for Mr. B2 Linked, AJ. The question is, what kind of content trends are you seeing on LinkedIn for B2B audiences?
So I'm seeing a little bit of a resurgence of webinars. The content slide I showed where it shows everything from blog content to ebooks and guides, webinars. I'm seeing a resurgence of webinars, a lot more interest there, which is great. Higher CTRs in advertising them. The white paper is the gift that keeps on giving. I keep seeing, no matter how old of a term I feel like white paper is, they still perform quite well. LinkedIn users respond to them quite well.
Yeah, there's also, on the content side of things, at AdStage, we've written over 300 blog posts on our blog, all about just how-to and help guides. And so those are the types of content that we're also seeing perform incredibly well. So part of white papers, part of webinars. But again, if you think about it, right, and all of us are on LinkedIn almost certainly. As a professional, you're looking for anything that's going to give you an edge at your job. So if you can leverage or you can pitch, your product or your service from the perspective of how am I going to make you better at your given profession or your given job function, that's going to yield you a really high CTR and in general just a solid conversion rate. But also keep in mind that there's some things you don't want to do. So a lot of people still make the mistake of the image that they put up with their sponsored update is their logo, right? Or some weird, vague marketing message. That's real estate that you're just wasting. And so for the image is obviously key. And you want to make sure that image is valuable. Maybe show a picture. If it's an analytics tool, show a picture of the dashboard. Show something that's interesting that you'd want to click on and learn a little bit more about. Or, take a cue from BuzzFeed sometimes. They do a very good job with image kind of clickbaiting to some extent. But from a professional standpoint, of course, you'd want to really focus on that. It was really funny because we actually, as an anecdote from our side, we actually just ran an ad campaign a couple months ago, a text ad campaign. And the only thing that we changed was the image. And we had our director of marketing's face and my face. He ended up winning. He's probably a better looking guy. But it was really interesting to see how big of a difference the image made in that case, as well for kind of testing these things. So those are a couple of pieces of advice that we would give out about content as well.
Yep, professionals are humans too at the end of the day, so appealing to that is really important. All right, I think for the last question, we're going to take, and it's probably relevant for AJ. Question is, do you develop personas that you apply across marketing on LinkedIn or just in general, and how do you refine them as you go?
Oh, such a good question. All right, thanks. This is Arena, sorry. Yeah, thanks for asking this. I love this question. So there is no better network out there for refining personas. And I'm not talking about the sort of complex personas where you talk about, Mary is a graduate of such and such university and try to keep in mind. But when you're talking about individual segments that you're going after and are they viable to your business, do they respond to your product or service, no better way to test that than LinkedIn. So a lot of times what I'll do is do a test audience and say, maybe we don't know if customer service managers are a good audience for us. Let's test this. So I'll set up a campaign going after that specific group of people, and I'll launch, let's say, 2 or 3 pieces of content against them. And maybe it's a similar type of content, maybe it's even the same blog post, but what I'm testing is the types of language in the intro or headline that they're going to respond to. So, something that's more ethereal, maybe it's more responded to by a C-level. So maybe if I launch 3 pieces of content, one mentions branding, one mentions big data, and one mentions a generic service. We can find out if customer service managers care about big data or if they care about basically any sort of messaging that we send against them. So I love testing and building personas using LinkedIn. It's way more valuable than just driving leads from your dream audience. It's also refining your marketing.
That's awesome. All right, guys. Well, that's all the time that we have for today. I just want to thank our 2 speakers for today coming in to share this expertise and knowledge that they do day in and day out on LinkedIn. And also want to thank all the people who attended today and all the great questions we had. This will be available with a recording shortly after. You should get an email. It's also a survey. Please feel free to be open, honest, and constructive about how you felt today's session was. And we hope to be back in the future with more of these. So thanks, and have a good rest of the day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.